and the participation by watch groups in all 50 states. From a hair salon owner in Cleveland Heights hosting 10 employees to the Atlantic Council hosting a global audience for more than 80,000. The goal of the debate watch is not to say who won or who lost, but to share views with those who agree and those who don't, to listen respectfully to each other's opinions. We are pleased that the Commission's longest-standing supporters, Judy and Peter Kovler, are in the audience tonight. For 32 years, the Judy and Peter Blum Kovler Foundation has given its trust to the nonpartisan mission of the Commission. We are deeply grateful for their belief in our work and their extraordinary contribution to the 2020 debates. It is now my distinct honor to introduce Dr. Tom Mihaljevic, President of the Cleveland Clinic, and Barbara Snyder, President of Case Western Reserve University. Thank you very much.
Good evening. On behalf of Cleveland Clinic, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the city of Cleveland. Tonight, you join us in the beautiful Sampson Pavilion of the Health Education Campus at Cleveland Clinic. We share this campus with our partners from Case Western Reserve University. This building is very special to us. It was opened just a year ago as a place for students, medical, nursing, and dental, to begin their professional journeys by learning together as teams. At that time, as we were opening this campus, none of us could have imagined that we would soon face a worldwide pandemic. When it happened, we converted this building into a COVID-19 surge hospital. The space in which you are sitting right now had 1,000 hospital beds. We called it the Hope Hospital. Thankfully, the surge did not come in Ohio. Yet tonight, this building serves another purpose, in support of our democracy, and it is a historic occasion for us and for our city. We are proud to support the Commission on Presidential Debates as their health security advisor. We at Cleveland Clinic and our 70,000 caregivers have been serving the health needs in Cleveland since 1921, nearly 100 years. Yet, our organization and our caregivers have never shone brighter than during this pandemic. The pandemic has brought out the best of our organization and our caregivers of our city and our state. Through partnership and collaboration, we see how much we can accomplish when we work together. And we are particularly proud of our partnership with Case Western Reserve University. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague and friend, President of Case Western Reserve University, Barbara Snyder.
Thank you, Tom. Case Western Reserve is honored to co-host this presidential debate with our partners at Cleveland Clinic, and delighted to show you this spectacular space we created together. Research has long shown that team-based healthcare leads to better outcomes for patients. Yet nearly every academic institution continues to prepare students in separate buildings, literally in silos. Yet after spending years learning only with students from the same profession, doctors with doctors, nurses with nurses, and so on, they are suddenly expected to know how to work in teams once they get their diplomas. We knew there had to be a better way, and together we built it. When not filled with a stage and seats, this atrium gives hundreds of students a huge open space to study, talk, and simply be together. The entire building provides multiple spaces for them to come together, supported by an academic model that emphasizes opportunities to learn with and from one another. add state-of-the-art technology, and we know our graduates will be uniquely prepared to excel in team-based care and ultimately to lead it. Along the way, Cleveland Clinic and Case Western Reserve also learned from one another. Among the most valuable lessons was that through collaboration, we achieve far more than either of us could achieve alone. Thank you, Tom, for being such a wonderful colleague and friend. Thank you to the Commission for giving both of our organizations the opportunity to be part of this historic event. It is a true privilege to contribute to our nation's democratic process. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Tom and Barbara, very much. Most valuable player award for this evening goes to Toby Cosgrove. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. One housekeeping bit for the audience. As soon as this debate is over, if you will please remain seated, you will be shown which way to exit. And please stay where you are until that happens. I would like to now introduce Chris Wallace, the moderator of this evening's debate.
Yeah, not sure why they have Wallace's mic off here, but we'll see. Yeah, hang on, folks. Fixing this for you. Apparently his mic is off on the C-SPAN channel.
After 15 months, U.S. Attorney John...
So yeah, actually it looks like so they've got all of the channels muted at this point. I'm assuming that's because they're starting at an exact time. Let's see, here we go. That was for the audience, whatever was just said, I'm assuming. Our First Lady there, Melania Trump. Choosing the old school mask here this evening. So if you're just tuning in, we're starting here almost immediately, just waiting on the two contenders of the evening step out on stage. They're cutting out all the theatrics tonight as far as preamble. Serious business here. So currently all audio is muted across all of the different channels. And they'll probably start it only as people walk in to avoid any sort of bleed over of political ideas and stuff through the microphones. So tonight is night one of the debates, moderated by Chris Wallace. Kicking off here within the minute.
Good evening from the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Chris Wallace there introducing the candidates. This is his second moderation. He moderated in 2016.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're
Mr.
not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you an
rid of the
and when I
individual
finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I
worst
didn't
part of
ask it,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part
me.
of Obamacare.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give
care.
you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost, I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big,
you'll
this
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if I
sorry.
can ask you the question. It will
Not
end
what your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go
the
on,
wrong
Joe,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let
Now you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
Folks,
that's absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Medicare.
Do you have any
President.
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President.
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because
Bernie?
because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen,
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and
known
I just
for.
had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what
So
his people
we
said.
do want to
No,
get
no,
rid of it.
but it's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have
that's
to
cheaper and
give you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have
against it.
one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You want to
question
put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
That-
now
We have,
he's not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
No,
Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
Far
point.
less
There was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
You made
by
a
the way.
point. Let him answer it.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers, just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available, not when it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This
delivering
is the
vaccine.
same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same
That
man.
was said sarcastically, and you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine sooner
I want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not, they're the people, and by the way.
I spoke to the
and
scientists
Fauci,
that are in charge.
By the way.
They will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you
man.
know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
see,
and
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great
he
thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I've
subject.
got to respond.
But those states,
gentlemen, I want to move on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've also said
no,
the opposite.
No serious person said the opposite.
They've
no
also said, well, look
serious
at
I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we got
He
a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. and Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Judge, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek
effect.
to jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraging them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's his two. Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. and he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
gentlemen, we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went... you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you...
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes, on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president.
Because you
weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
You've asked your question, let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way...
Well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice
He got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month? with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
with no
my
job?
son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only guy that
President, let
did
him
some-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies,
talk
by the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
under-
Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even
you.
the people under.
He got $3.5 million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
because
job.
some people don't do a
well,
good
here's
job.
The,
With you,
Go
they
ahead.
said-
You get
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let-
family
already
lost
wrote-
a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's
Every-
such a.
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
President.
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us
family.
with
It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
collect $3.5
people.
million
He
for
doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about
you
here.
should
All right,
Not
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No, I-
He
I-
stood
good.
up.
No,
he stood up.
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you don't
that
get rid of
is
the
If you're-
press.
you know what? You're-
absolutely
wait,
not
stop.
You're on
true.
tape doing it.
You're going to
You're on
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but
on
it seems
tape.
to be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
there's
than.
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
Now,
who
second,
sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
he did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and, in many cases, radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're now. Mr. President, you're going to. Mr. President,
every record in the book.
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
about
it.
Look,
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There
moderator's
aren't. I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
but
should
you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Really? Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the
all right.
But here's the point.
Go ahead,
the point
sir.
is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
Okay, and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have
His
repeatedly.
statement. Wait,
you have
just 1
No,
second.
you've been talking back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it. And
if you want to switch seats.
We could very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specifically
that, but
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
This
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing
problem. White
Go ahead,
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what
Oh, really?
his
It's an idea.
FBI his FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well, then you know what?
We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
Everybody
moving.
gives you advice in your administration.
That's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration
bad.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah,
Because-
yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter?
hell.
Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably
cocaine
discharged.
use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right, but he
dollars?
wasn't given
All right,
tens of
but he
millions
was
of
given
dollars.
tens
That is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
been totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been through.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
I know, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take
your
a lot of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the building. No, it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going
by the case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because
country.
I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that. At all.
He did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a lot of things.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
that is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
He made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is he
You're done
said
in this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
true.
it.
Stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that
play
to
Stop.
the military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your
the
environmental
Green New
changes
Deal,
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden-
lost the radical left.
I
Done.
support
Oh, you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a wastepaper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
If there are millions of ballots going out right now,
what you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But
like
what I'm
they,
saying is,
like they used to in the old...
Millions of people...
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending... They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence.
This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows the outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
gentlemen, I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right.
been
So now,
fraud.
Mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is:
day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
in
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you
what
what,
does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean you're
I'll tell
going to
you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means
street?
you have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name
All right.
military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take
but-
a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I
and
asked
how-
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at Carolyn
respond.
Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to
if
see
in
an
fact,
honest
Okay.
ballot count.
Gentlemen,
We-
you say that's the end of
Chris,
it? This is
I
the
wanna
end of
see
this
an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it there.
does too.
To be continued
does.
as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night. Thank you.
Ending the debate here. Round 1. Melania, Mr. President, Ms. Biden, Mr. Ex-Vice President.
President Trump, the greatest president of all time. We love you, Trump.
All right, so pulling up, let's see if I can get this frame in frame here real quick. It's going to end pretty quick. Not much going on down there. But folks, that is the end of round one of the presidential elections, or presidential debates for the elections 2020. And just finished up there. Let me see if I can get up. No, it ends immediately. It's okay. Not fucking around with it.
Yeah. If my man was...
All right. So a lot going on there.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Yeah. So ups and downs. Started with some ups.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
that moth.
It did.
It did start with some ups. So the question is, okay, who won? Your vote, Trump?
Trump.
Biden?
Trump.
Okay.
Trump.
Okay. Me too. Trump
Yeah,
won.
Trump won. Like he will in November.
But we were going for a flawless victory in this case.
That we did not.
And we had that up until like the last 15 minutes.
Fuck it up, he did.
But you know, and that's kind of what he does.
Yeah, that's what he does, yeah.
That's been what he does.
We recognize he's a genuine fuck up.
Yeah.
But aren't we all from time to time?
We are.
That's like the human condition.
That is. We
Yeah.
got married. So
Yeah.
yeah. The human condition is always yeah.
Yeah.
Now I give my other finger. Yeah, so okay, go back to the beginning of the debate. Pre debate, what were the expectations going into this for you? Being less politically obsessed than I am, probably even more pro Trump than I am.
Yeah.
What going into it? What were you feeling on there?
You know, I pretty much got what I anticipated. I expected. Well, I will say Trump looked really fucking hot.
He looked better.
He was very handsome.
Yeah, his hair wasn't.
Whoever did his haircut did beautiful square layers, and it was spot on.
They got rid of that part, that top half.
Yeah.
Top 3/4.
So, props to his hairdresser.
Yeah, which actually you went to school with one of his hairdressers at one point in time.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, still good friends with her. But yeah, so props to his hairdresser.
So props to you, young lady.
And his orange tan was looking very nice.
Yeah, and not even sprayed on this time. Maybe even earned on the golf course.
It was a little less orange. So he looked handsome, debonair, might I say. But as I was expecting him to be strong and like come off and own it, and I was expecting some fumbles, but not in the areas that it happened.
We're gonna save that.
I am saving it.
Early on. Mm-hmm. What did you think coming out of the gates? So you come out of the gates.
I thought he was really calm and composed, right? Didn't he seem calm and composed for the most part?
Who is he?
Trump.
Oh yes, Trump.
I thought he seemed really like together, which you know usually he's kind of like you just never know. But I mean, of course that composure kind of disintegrated to a degree.
Well, that's always what you expect.
But that is what I expect. Yeah.
It's
those were the
essentially
fumbles.
it's like sock 'em puppets.
Yeah.
It's like who knocks the head off like the first three times.
But think about it. It's like when you're talking to someone, anybody. There is an intensity. There is an energy that starts to culminate as you keep talking. So that's
the beginning of any relationship or conversation is
absolutely.
the fakest, most ingenuine part of that.
Absolutely.
So it's like once you sink into it, then it starts to reveal true character. Mm-hmm. So that kind of opened up on a lame duck, and it moved more or less into what everyone in the pundits were essentially saying. Biden's real argument here was going to be coronavirus. So coronavirus is Biden's number one thing because the biggest challenge to an incumbent is the economy, and the biggest challenge to the Trump economy was the coronavirus. And so that was the thing that Biden and his camp prepared for absolutely the most of all all of the different points that were going to be argued
On a side
tonight.
note, on Biden's look, there's this comedian that uses puppets. I can't think of
Yes.
his name right now. And Biden looks like he's
Y'all
one
know
of,
that name.
Yeah, y'all do.
You might win a free book if you put it in the comment.
And Biden looks like one of those puppets. He tends to do this thing with his eyes.
Yeah, where he fought.
And I'm a notorious blinker, but my God,
Yeah.
Biden has got me beat.
Yeah, she winks like this, and Biden blinks like this. So it's kind of that sort of thing, and it does make you kind of wonder. It's like the uncanny valley in CGI. It's like, what exactly is happening? Is that real?
Yeah.
Is that fake? What do I think?
What
of
are you
this?
thinking? Yeah, what's happening?
Yeah, what's happening right now? I don't know if I'm sucked in or if I'm just in the cult mentality or
Or
if
how
that
about when
just
he looks
really
directly
happened.
at the camera?
Yeah. You America. America.
That felt
And-
so
and-
scripted
and,
and,
yeah,
like
exactly.
weird.
And whenever he would do that, Trump would look down. He always would look down. He wouldn't look in the camera. So he wouldn't look at America. What does that mean? Who knows? What does it mean?
Well, you know what? I had an issue with Biden because I really wanted to, I guess I'm always looking for a reason to be disproved or to have my opinion changed about something. And I really wanted to hear like all of Biden's good ideas. I wanted to know why like 90% of the people that I genuinely like and admire, their artistic ability at least. I just want to make that really clear.
Not their minds.
Not their, yeah. But they're part of their minds,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Like, why are you guys so enamored with this man?
Right.
And why are you so behind him? So, like, I want to be compelled. Compel me, Biden. And I was absolutely not. He was not answering
Orange
questions.
Man bad. That was
it was Orange Man bad.
Yeah.
You're a bad president. You're the worst president.
Yep.
And that just wasn't enough for me.
That was kind of the theme of the night for Biden.
As a mother of 4 kids, like, I'm used to like hearing like, her fault, his fault, why, what happened?
Right.
And I need more.
I mean,
than
we
that.
fight all the time
Yeah.
over things,
We're pros.
and yeah, we back and forth. Some people win, sometimes we concede. We're more political than Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but we don't need a moderator.
No.
So Chris Wallace tonight.
Poor Chris. But he handled it like a fucking G.
Right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So Chris Wallace
Mr.
moderated.
President. Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Gentlemen.
Gentlemen. Yeah, so Chris Wallace moderated, and if you guys remember those debates that led into the Trump 2016 election victory, those were also moderated by Chris Wallace. And yeah, so this is his second time doing it, and last time was with Hillary, and one of the probably most famous quotes from that particular debate, I think it was debate 2, it might not have been, was Chris Wallace, like, basically as Trump and Hillary are going against each other, it's like, I'm not a potted plant in the room. I can ask questions here. And like, so like that whole time, like Trump and Hillary, their venom and animosity, and it was Muhammad Ali. That shit was George Foreman. That shit was Mike Tyson. That shit was just bam, McGregor knocked the fuck out, bitch. Like that shit was hot in 2016, back and forth, just the way it all occurred. And so we've been hearing all of this shit over the past 4 years leading into this election. Do you think that the Democrats and that side of the aisle are making the exact same mistakes, or are they playing the same role but a little differently this time?
I would say they're playing the same role, but just a little bit differently. But overall, it feels like more of the same.
So more Trump or more Biden on this?
What do you mean?
I just mean feeling it out, because again, obviously we're
like
two
who's
different.
Who's gonna win?
No, not who's gonna win on this debate.
Who came off stronger?
Not just that. Just Okay, you know what? We'll save this question for a little later because
Okay.
we have a few more topics to go through. We haven't gone through all of the different things that occurred tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll save that question for the finality. What was Biden's strong point tonight for you listening to it? Not including that one particular thing.
Yeah.
Was there one?
Let me think. I'm thinking. He defended his son like any good parent would try to. I would say that was honorable.
So nepotism.
Yes, his nepotism.
Okay. I think we can give Trump a +1 on nepotism. We can give Biden a +1 on nepotism. So yeah, they both support their children.
Yeah. And I would say he seemed to speak in coherent sentences.
He did.
And I think that was a plus for him.
For Biden, yeah.
For Biden, yeah.
Because
Complete
he didn't
sentences.
fall asleep.
He didn't fall asleep.
Right.
Complete sentences.
Which I don't know if that's a positive or negative that he actually just like that's our expectation was such a traumatic defeat for Biden that it was like he's literally going to fall asleep, but he did not. He maintained.
I liked his striped tie.
His black and white.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan.
I kind of have a thing for black and white right now.
Because Trump had that blue and red one.
I still think Trump looked better, but I'm trying to have an
give
equal
the
and
man
just
some
way,
props.
and I'm trying to point out the good in him that I saw. His hair was very white; it didn't have a yellow tinge. So again, props to his hairdresser.
That is a prop. Yeah,
that's definitely a prop.
Yep.
And that's about it.
But they did get the actually go back and look, and that back curl on that part of your hair back there.
Yeah.
That actually was exactly the same on Trump and Biden.
Oh, really? Maybe the same hairdresser?
Maybe a very successful
I might
Paul
need to
Mitchell
make some phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah, so shout out to you. You know who you are.
You know who you are. Yeah.
Yes, our friend.
That's right.
Yeah, our friend that does that hair.
That hair.
Yeah.
And that good makeup.
Yeah.
Airbrush.
Okay, so it opened up. The opening salvo was essentially over the basic general disagreements. The second one was over the coronavirus, and that's the thing that I don't know. Do we want to go into the coronavirus?
Yeah, because
segment?
you know what? I've heard a lot of. I've heard at least people say, if Joe Biden is elected, he's got a plan to fix the coronavirus, and so I expected to hear more about that. But it's what it sounded like is he's far more interested in like closing down the economy, keeping everything closed, and I don't know. As a business owner, I know I certainly don't want that. As a parent, I currently have my kids in private school. Thank God Almighty.
Catholic school.
But I know a lot of people that can't afford to do that. They just can't do that. Or on top of that, even if you could afford to do it, there were no openings.
Yes. And
so,
when that particular subject was brought up, I would say, from my opinion on it, watching it, the fear mongering of it was on the Biden side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was. Again, not talking about the science because was there any scientific? Nobody talked about science.
They did talk about the science, but they basically were saying
arguing over who the expert is.
They were arguing. Well, Kamala was saying, I guess, she made a really ugly comment about the scientist rather. I guess we can't trust them, but we can. I was confused.
You can't trust a Trump appointee.
We can't. Okay, so I wasn't sure. Can we trust the science or can we not trust the science?
Well, I mean, who's the science?
Yeah.
I think that's the question. Who's the science? What is science?
So.
Is that the people that you see dying everywhere around you, or is that the numbers?
Well, then they said people in the suburbs were dying, and I live in the suburbs, and I know a lot of people out here, and let me tell you, y'all, we ain't dying.
Not one.
We're not dying. We're okay.
Not one. But we just live in a good subdivision.
We might.
We just live in a good subdivision.
We might, but my kids also go to school with people that live in the suburbs
that have had a couple of coronavirus outbreaks at this point,
and they're not dying either.
Nope, nobody's dying.
They're not dying.
Not one.
Now I know people are dying from coronavirus.
They
now,
are.
I'm not trying to say that this doesn't kill people,
No.
but what I will say is when I listen to Governor Beshear, I don't know if anybody else does, when he talks about the people that are dying, they seem to be very mature in age.
Right.
Like almost close to hitting a century-year-old. We're talking about 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, 70. These people are really, really old people. They have other underlying conditions. Like I know someone who their aunt died of coronavirus, but she had a whole bunch of underlying conditions, and it was the pneumonia that actually killed her.
Right. And they would count that now as the coronavirus.
Yes. So I think that's a little misleading.
when Biden's using those numbers, the 200,000, which originally, got to remember, on the conservative end of these deaths, not even 4 months ago, all over NPR and all over public radio, the fear was 500,000 dead. 300,000 would be like the catastrophic number. But like they were saying, like 500,000 was even more realistic. There were a whole lot of numbers being thrown around. We've lost 200,000 people out of a country of 400 and something million.
I'm about to say something else that is probably super unpopular, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But okay, so I thought I heard him say that 1 out of 1,000 African Americans or blacks, I'm not sure which word he used, were dying of the coronavirus. Yet I see tons of protests and riots where tons of people also other colors, but predominantly black, all gathered out and around, yet our kids can't go to school. But this is a group that is that's I guess under attack by coronavirus, right? They are disproportionately dying more.
They say that, and yet they're the more outnumber right now with the BLM thing that's going on, which is essentially what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that there's a lot of people out there. Now, in the past, as we've covered on GTTV the last few nights, the protests, most people are wearing masks now. So, like, that is a thing.
I will say that. And
that's a recent development.
Yeah.
But these protests have been going on for 100 and something days, 130, 40, 50 days now at this point. Mm-hmm. And we've been seeing these massive amounts of people out in public and breathing on each other, spitting on each other, screaming on each other, and virtually zero reports on like coronavirus deaths related to
they don't seem to be dying. They're still they're still out there protesting.
Yeah, they'll throw out numbers of people that are dying, but they will not attribute any parameter whatsoever to the protests themselves, which are the number one like congregations at this point.
Right now,
people aren't even going to church.
Yeah.
Or school. So like the two major things that people like as a ritualistic sense. Wait.
Let's not just address that, because I used to be a fan of the taverns, bars, clubs, shindigs, parties late at night, and even that has been cut short. So people aren't even
which outnumber church and outnumber school is people that go and have a drink.
Shout out to all the drunks out there and party people. I miss y'all. But so like that's been cut down too. So I mean. I pinned that. It was a little seed that was planted, and I was like, okay, let me think about that. That's all I'm saying.
So and I would agree. Like basically, what I saw throughout the whole debate. Mm-hmm. Number one, don't do Chris Wallace again, Moffs. Don't do it. Like Chris Wallace, man. The guy's a cactus. He's like a sequoia. There is no, like, he's just, come on now. You can't get somebody that can be a little bit more animated and control the situation.
I kind of like him, though. I kind of like him.
I like him, too, because he reminds me of Mitch McConnell.
Cocaine Mitch. I don't care what none of y'all say.
I mean, that's the old establishment. And if you like
like
old establishment, that's your thing. Mitch McConnell,
I like
Chris
him
Wallace.
better than Amy McGrath.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not even saying like I'm not a super fan of like people staying in those positions for 30, 40, 50 years.
But there
is
a respect to the tradition and to the elders.
But if you give me freaking Amy McGrath over Mitch McConnell, it's like I got to pick the lesser of two evils. I'm sorry.
Just like Chris Wallace over Anderson Cooper. I mean, we got to choose the lesser of two evils.
We pick Chris Wallace. Or let's even take take it all the way to what we're going through right now collectively as Americans, because that's how we should all be talking about each other. We should not be using race to identify each other, period.
No.
We should not be using color to identify each other.
If that were the case, then we wouldn't.
We wouldn't even be together, yeah. Because my mama is half black, half German.
And my mama is mostly white.
Okay.
Always white.
My nieces and nephews are what? So they're half of what we are, and their mother is black.
And we called our other half just white.
So basically, I have half of my family that looks straight black, that is black, in Indianapolis,
white half.
in Texas, and yeah, he's the complete white half, and then I have a Spanish half, and then I have an Asian half. I got so many freaking
all
people.
her halves outnumber my halves. Sort of like America.
I'm very mixed. I'm very mixed. So it's like...
Yeah, we got a little bit of that.
Don't dare call me a racist.
That Flavor Flav.
Yeah. Because
all
I know.
of it's in here. Okay. So, round 1, round 2, round 3 in the motherfucker. Tonight was really beautiful. At what point, I'm just going to leave this question to you, young colored lady.
Thank you. You know what though? My mom would be like, he called you colored.
Yeah, well,
that is taboo.
We at that point in the broadcast at this point.
Yeah.
So there came a point in this broadcast where we were on fire for Trump. Just like, ooh, like it was just flawless victory.
Can we bring up this one thing though? Biden, when he was calling black people, what was it? Super predators?
Oh, the super predators.
The 1994
Yeah, no, that was just
Reform
Biden. That was just Biden being Biden.
I just want to bring that up for
was
all
his
you
terminology.
people that think, for everybody who thinks that Biden is like supporting people of color, like
old school Democrat, desegregation.
You want to talk about? I don't like call people racist, but that motherfucker's a racist.
Yeah, he was.
Maybe he's reformed now.
He did not
but
want our children to go to school together. He didn't want them drinking out of the same water fountain.
No, he didn't.
He was very vocal about most of these things.
Oh, what's the other one?
Especially when it came to the black plantations at the prison
Hall?
system. That was where Joe Biden was just law and order motherfucker. So this did switch to law and order. Actually, that was the second to last topic, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Was law and order, and that was kind of the place where I guess this was all destined to go. Coronavirus was the subterfuge, but at the end of the day, this right now, number one in the headlines is the Breonna Taylor, George Floyd sort of narrative here.
Yeah.
So where does America sit on that particular subject? Because we have seen drastically different poll numbers and social media numbers, and also just we're seeing a lot of switches and changes within the parties and the way that the demographics are made up between Democrats and Republicans.
Well, and I'm hearing people vocally express openly and publicly that there are other facts that are coming out now, and they're realizing that this according I'm not.
These are activists. These are hardcore. These are
hardcore activists that are out there.
These are people that have the best of intention at heart for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and against police brutality, that have no favors for Donald Trump.
Yes, but they are also changing their position on the Breonna Taylor case. So, and the more I hear about it, the more I'm thinking, this is not quite what people are making it out to be. If I start dating a drug dealer and I let him use my address to have drugs sent to, right? The UPS is dropping off drugs at my house.
Not to say that we haven't done this before once or twice.
But it's like I'm involved in criminal activity, and it's like the price that you're gonna pay.
Blame?
When you're it's like if you got a brother or sister that's in some bullshit and you know that they date drug dealers and ghetto folks that just stay in trouble and that break the law, you are not surprised when you get that phone call.
But it's all in the family shit, so you don't tell everybody else.
No, you don't talk about that.
But the family fucking knows.
Yes, but we know we gotta fuck
all know
up.
what the hell's going on.
And that if some shit goes down or she winds up dead, it's like I knew that shit was gonna happen. I told her.
And we do. We police ourselves. America polices itself. We all have a lot of different kinds of friends in a lot of different sorts of places.
All I know is that if you're knocking, police, 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 if that's what happens here at my address, okay, I am not going to take my gun and start shooting. That's just not what I'm going to do.
Nope.
I may not open the motherfucking door. I'm probably not going to open the door.
Might piss my leg a little bit.
Okay.
But I ain't even shooting that motherfucker through the roof.
I'm not going to let you in willingly, but I'm sure as hell not going to shoot.
Nope.
Because you're going to shoot back.
Yep.
And I've heard so many people, like hardcore people, that are like, let the motherfucking police come after me. I'm going to act like I'm shooting just because they're not taking me back to jail. I'm not dealing with this shit.
And then
so
they
I
take
know
them
the
back to
perspectives.
jail.
Yes. Because they don't actually do that shit because they don't want to get
they
killed.
standing there in the middle of that crowd at the riots, and then it's like they go to jail and nobody stands up
But
for
this
them.
is my main thing. This is the main thing. What I'm most, regardless of the details, right? Let's take all that out. Let's say that let's just say she was innocent and she was wrongfully killed by the police. Let's just say that is the case, right?
Right.
That her boyfriend didn't shoot first.
I
and
do
that
think she was wrongfully
She
killed.
was wrongfully killed. I mean, she didn't deserve to die. She
I
did
just
not
don't know
deserve to
who
die.
I blame it on.
I'm just saying, if her boyfriend had it, let's say that it's not true that the boyfriend shot first and that the police literally used that no-knock warrant and did not announce themselves as previously stated, and they bust in and they started shooting like madmen. Let's say that's the case. That still does not support the narrative that this was a racial murder.
Yeah.
It does not support the fact that she was racially profiled and she was killed because she was black, which is, to me, the underlying message of this entire Black
That's
Lives.
the whole part of it.
Yeah, like
that makes it
Black
relevant.
Lives Matter,
Yeah,
because we're being murdered, and it's like she wasn't murdered because she was
100
black.
motherfuckers are killed all the time. Like, the people are dying every single day. Black people dying every single day. Black people by police that aren't even reported.
And that's another thing I want to say. And then we can get back to the Biden and Trump thing, but let me say something else on some real shit, because I know this intimately. Because I got family that's everywhere.
And I've heard these motherfucking stories.
Yes, and this is true. I know for a fact. So it's like, when black people kill black people, that don't matter. Our lives are only important when we're murdered by white people. That is what the BLM movement says to me. It says, so we don't have to address what's happening in Indy. We don't have to address what's happening in Chicago or Cali or New York or in Macon, fucking Georgia.
What is that? Uncle Tom that adopts the white ideology and then applies it to the black race?
Yes.
The victimization, the fact that, they put us in this situation.
So yeah,
we don't have any control.
Our lives don't matter when it's happening in Macon, Georgia, and we're killing each other.
Yeah, that don't count.
That doesn't count.
Because we can't help ourselves.
White people only make our lives valuable, so now we're going to get enraged, and now we're going to talk about it. And that shit pisses me off because I think it's a stupid fucking mentality.
Because there's a lot of black people that are about to vote for Trump because of this exact situation.
I'm not the only one that feels that way. There's a lot of people that feel this way, and they're speaking about it now. And then you want to call our black academics Uncle Toms. And that is absolutely bewildering to me.
But you can take any student activists and say that they're basically the voice of the next generation. These are kids that are just barely even educated, have no life experience. They're taking the inflammatory notions set before them and have literally nothing to back it up. And we buy that. We put that on the mainstream news. So there was one thing tonight, though, and there was a thing. There was a thing. So it was a flawless victory with Trump as far as Trump versus Biden. I would say that this kind of reflects the entire narrative of this election that's coming up, which is that this is Trump versus Trump. There is no contender. There's no Hillary. There's no Obama. There is only Trump versus Trump. But Biden doesn't count for anything. Does Biden count for anything?
He doesn't. I wanted him to. I wanted to be compelled, but no, I wasn't. I wasn't compelled at all.
Did he make an argument?
No, he wouldn't even answer questions.
So there's no Biden. There's only, is Trump super evil and bad, or is Trump okay? And I think that's basically the decision that we're left with after round one of the Trump-Biden debate.
Yeah, because it's literally you're voting for people. It's like, do I vote? Okay, I hate Trump. I don't think he's presidential. I don't think he's eloquent.
Which
he
is
tweets nonsense.
The main Republican issue is I don't agree with him. He doesn't represent me. He's an asshole. He has no taste and culture and fucking he just.
Ugh. Yeah, we're all disgusted. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I have this vile creature here, and then I have Biden, another vile creature, and let's look at his policy and what he stands for. Because again, this is not we're not supposed to be voting based on personality. You vote based on policy. So I have to look at what Biden supports, and I have to look at what Trump supports,
and the record,
and the record on top of exactly.
You've got 47 years of Biden versus four years of Trump, and I think that alone says a lot, because Biden cannot erase this record that he has, which is he was an anti-sex desegregationalist. Biden did not support. Biden didn't want your kids drinking out of the same water fountain as a black person.
Did you see the way he was looking at Cardi B during the interview?
Oh yeah,
oh my God.
We all saw it. So like Biden is old school Democrat, which we all know Democrats are the party of the Klan. Democrats are the party of slavery. That is just the fact.
Even the fact that they would use her.
We can say that they reversed and all these things, but that is the fact. Biden, regardless of what you will say about the party and progressivism and all of that, which have definitely moved beyond Biden, which is why Biden is like tagged on as like the thing to be torn between the far left and the old moderate Democratic Party, which is what Biden is supposed to represent. Biden they need you to vote for Biden so that he can die and that Kamala Harris can become the new leftist president.
Well, even when they were talking, when he was answering, he wouldn't answer questions, and he was saying, well, you just need to go vote. Why am I going to just vote unless you answer the questions? I need to know why I'm voting for you. And then maybe I will just go vote. But I'm not going to vote just because you tell me to. And they keep saying it. I've heard Kamala Harris say it. We need to vote for somebody that can beat Trump. No, I need to vote for somebody that's going to implement good policy that's going to affect
somebody that helps
me
black people, that helps
and
white
my neighbors, American citizens, us comprehensively as a united people and a united nation collectively. That's who I need to vote for. So
do you think Trump represents that?
Yes.
Yes,
I do feel that way. I feel like he is the lesser of two evils. I cannot vote for a party that doesn't support law and order, that wants to twist the narrative of all these. We do videography. There's one thing I know when you're doing videography, you are capturing a lot of crap. And the fact that the media is then twisting it, when I'm looking at it, if you just mute it and look at the picture, you can see what's happening. That's all you need to do. So the fact that they're trying to tell me what's happening instead of letting me use my eyes to see what I see, and twisting everything. The fact that Trump is always wrong. Nobody's always wrong. Nobody is always anything. Everybody is yin and yang. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. So it's all these false narratives that just they offend me, and so it's like, okay, I can't get behind that. You want to kill babies up to 9 months? I was absolutely pro-choice.
Right.
It's your body, your choice. You should do what you want to. Do I think Planned Parenthood should be funded? Hell no. You know what? Let me tell you something. If you need to get an abortion, and I know firsthand,
I gotta pay if I'm gonna go to the dentist.
Look, Planned Parenthood. EMW clinic here in Louisville helps more women who really need help.
Them.
And you have to pay them, but you can if you are depending on your circumstance, you can actually get an abortion for free.
You can.
You absolutely can if your circumstance is dire.
And
at Planned Parenthood, it does not matter how dire your situation is. You're not getting an abortion for free. Okay, so
and that's not Planned Parenthood. That's not the federal government. That's not anything except for independent donors.
Yes, they're privately funded.
Local people. And they serve all of Kentucky.
Yes.
So basically, that's the only place you can get.
So that's a clinic that actually helps women.
Mike Pence targeted this specific place because it is the only place in Kentucky where you can get an abortion. It's not supported by the federal government. Joe Biden doesn't give a shit about it. He's never talked about it. The federal government's never talked about it. Kamala Harris never gave a shit about it.
Yeah.
And it's the one place where you can get an abortion if
that
is your thing.
Yeah, if you need that. So that's what upsets me. Everybody acts like Planned Parenthood is the save all for women that are in a bad situation and want to, control their bodies. And
it's just like the leftists say whenever you argue Planned Parenthood and abortion, it's like, well, they don't provide abortion. You're damn right, they don't provide abortion.
They sure don't provide Planned Parenthood.
They don't provide shit.
They don't provide Planned Parenthood.
They don't provide anything except for birth control pills and
check you for STDs.
They'll put a IUD
I've used Planned Parenthood services before. I've used EMW services before. I'm not ashamed of it. I've actually posted a comment on Google about it because EMW was good to me. But my whole point is when you want to kill babies up to 9 months, I have an issue with that. That's not okay with me.
You're talking about babies that are literally just gonna
That's not okay.
fall out and be just little children.
That's when you literally take somebody like me who's pro-choice, and then if you
switch them,
you
flip
switch
them.
me. I'm just like, well, I'm not for killing like 9-month-old babies. I'm talking about early first trimester, like 8 weeks and earlier. Like you get your abortion. Like you're keeping track. You realize you missed your period, and now you're trying to get the funds together to pay the $400, $500, $600 you need, depending on whether you're doing a pill or you're having a surgical section done, to do it. So anyhow, it's just and so I can't get behind people that want to do that because let me tell you something else. Those stem cells, they're very valuable. Like I'm literally gonna bank mine, this time. So if you think they're just throwing away that tissue and they're not using it,
right,
you're sadly mistaken. It's not some kind of conspiracy theory bullshit. They're harvesting those children.
They are harvesting them, and we all accept that. Whatever it happens to be, okay. Let's move past that particular.
Let's move past that point. Yeah.
Because the presidential candidates did. So all that aside, with all of that. The basically that was the Supreme Court justice argument, which more or less got jaded over.
Well, they were saying that his new Supreme
Court kind of really didn't
nominee
even address it, which is the biggest issue, and they did not get into any of the legalities.
Well, they
of
talked
that.
about Roe versus Wade, and basically what
They
Trump
made
says
it
is
about Roe
you
versus
don't
Wade.
know what her position is on Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
You don't know it.
She has never argued a case against Roe versus Wade. She's not been a Supreme Court justice. She hadn't offered her opinion on Roe versus Wade. The only thing that we have to base her on is that she is a originalist constitutionalist. So she believes she's trying to interpret the Constitution according to the original feelings and opinions of the founding fathers. Not looking forward to the future and all the progressives and all that stuff that's happened since then, and that's fine. There are two different ways to look at the Constitution. I think both of them are equally viable. That obviously is a big point in the election this year, is because we have Ruth Bader Ginsburg that has died, and so there's an appointment coming up, and we all respect her. There's nobody right or left that has disrespected Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as far as I'm concerned, that I've heard, and I listened to right wing pundits and left wing pundits, and there is an equal amount of respect. And also, on both ends, it seems, an equal amount of respect for this new justice that's being introduced. There's been really no arguments made against her.
Bad against her.
Yeah, it's really more about the fact that Trump is appointing her, and she has conservative values. What is a conservative value, though? That is another question.
Conservative values is just saying limited government. That's all it's saying. That's really, truly all it's saying.
States' rights.
Yeah.
So if you live in the state of California and your state wants to do this thing with as far as children and women's rights goes, that's your thing. That has nothing to do with Georgia. It has nothing to do with Texas or Florida. People don't like that. That's fine. That's okay.
I don't need a babysitter, though. See, I'm a grown woman, and I don't want the government being my nanny. And I'm not okay with that. I'm just not.
And she has a vagina, and I don't.
So that is how I feel about it. I mean, that's just how it is. But let's get back to the...
So they made that point. But we get into a thorny area here in this particular debate. So we're going to get to this point now. Because when you look at this as like a boxing match and just like punching heads, like Trump was just fucking wailing.
Blow, blow, blow,
just
blow.
blip, 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 blip. And then all of a sudden, like the last literal 15 to 20 minutes of the debate, the topic of white supremacy comes up.
Yes. Y'all, it almost made me want to take down my Trump 2020 sign in my yard. And that's a lot coming from me.
Yeah. That's way more coming from her than me, because I didn't even think about that particular thing.
It really upset me. It really upset me.
I don't understand this particular thing. I do, though. And I was saying it as we were watching it.
And I also see the other side of it, and I'm hoping that the depth that I hope is there, because if it's not, it's just really a hard pill for me to swallow.
So at the end of this debate, or towards the end of the debate, not the very end, but towards the end, probably the 4th, 5th question out of 5 or 6, the question comes up about racism. And so Biden answers it eloquently and blah, 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 falls asleep at the podium. We don't know what he said because nobody was paying attention. And then it switches back to Trump, and it's, will you basically condemn white supremacists? Because, Chris Wallace came up with these questions, takes it back to the South Carolina case where Heather Heyer got run over and Joe Biden couldn't even remember her name, didn't know who she was or any of that. We do, because it was a big deal for us Republicans that like somebody got murdered in our name that got like smeared all over the internet, and like that was a tragedy. But apparently they don't remember who she is, but she died. And because of this white supremacist, Trump came out, and then of course this is what everybody remembers, the mainstream media, was that Trump did not condemn the white supremacists specifically and said that, you know, there were bad folks on both sides of the equation here, and we should condemn basically bad behavior and not like group people into whatever class you want to put them because of whatever thing that you're seeing on the TV. And, you know, there was a lot of depending on where you sat on that, there was a whole lot of debate and a whole lot of controversy and all that shit. Tonight, that question came back up, and I think where all of Trump's supporters were really just expecting like a clear victory, especially on the roll that fucking Trump was on. Yeah. It was just like bam, 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 just blap, blap, blap. Like Biden was just, oh, motherfucker, I can't hear blah. And then like Chris Wallace throws this fucking question in, and it's just like Biden just gets to pop back up, just, you know, reanimate himself. And like fucking, we're talking about racism, and the question is, will you condemn racism? Now, will you
condemn white supremacists?
Will you condemn white supremacists? Yeah, and the militia. We paraphrasing here, but like he didn't ask that of Joe Biden. No, he just asked it of Trump, and Trump. Motherfucker!
That motherfucker would not. He did not say I condemn the white supremacists, and that was super fucking upsetting. Excuse my language.
Insanely enraging for all of his base.
I was literally laying down on a pillow, like watching, and we
were basically jerking off to this at this point. Yeah. Like it was so fucking good. Like the victory was so certain, and it was just this one question.
And so that was really
the easiest question of the night.
Yeah, I mean, how hard is it to condemn that? But okay, so let me say this though. Like right now, I know like during Derby, there were all black supremacist groups that were out there. White people aren't allowed. You have to be black. And there have been other groups around the nation that have come out. And I haven't heard that particularly condemned. And what I have heard a lot of people argue is, well, what's wrong with considering that black is supreme or white is supreme or Puerto Rican power is supreme, as long as I'm not being violent and hateful.
As long as I'm right and you wrong.
Again, as long as I'm not being.
That's not the point she was making.
As long as I'm not being violent or hateful. What is wrong with having pride in my color, my race, my culture? So it is kind of a slippery slope when that is the position that the media and a lot of people in our nation have taken. We have not condemned these black supremacist groups largely. Maybe people have privately in their homes, but for the most part, if you say anything, people will call you a racist.
But the Republican Party has and will, and I will, in their stead right now, condemn all white supremacists. Anybody that thinks that white people are superior to black people, anybody that thinks that slavery should be reinstituted, anybody that supports institutional slavery
I condemn
systems.
All supremacists. Anybody who thinks you're better than anybody. We are all Americans. What was that saying?
And that represents Trump's base, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
And I think it represents Biden's base, by the way. I think that particular issue is the one thing that we all agree on, no matter
it's disgusting. Yeah, nobody supports the KKK.
Nobody except for the KKK.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen the little documentaries people have done about the KKK, but I wouldn't be scared of them. I'm not scared of them. I've watched these documentaries, and they kind of look, they're small groups of people.
It's the same dude every time.
Yeah.
They got to find that one dude in South Carolina that has a little fucking commune with the KKK. I mean, y'all, like, he's the Red Wizard.
We don't have to be worried.
But it was infuriating, to say the least.
Yeah.
It was
really infuriating.
absolutely insane.
I don't know why he didn't. Yeah.
It made me just like, ugh.
Yeah, you fuck
But
up.
you know, this is the thing that you get when you support Trump. It's just that clench factor. It's like your anus and your sphincter just squeezes up. The turd like falls off, but half of it's still inside, and you feel that big old hard turd. But it's like, I'm not shitting no more right now. I'm just not. I'm not going to do it. That's how it felt. It was just like,
Get a poop
oh my
squat so
God,
you're
you
at the
can't
right
condemn
angle.
the white fucking supremacists?
Yeah.
The fucking Klan? Like, you don't have to, that does not mean that you support
That's
the
not your
fucking
base.
Antifa.
Yeah, like you don't have to worry about that. Like,
right.
you just say it.
Yeah, that's not your base.
Your base.
Your base is not white supremacists. I don't know if it's like Steve O'Bannon that convinced you of this, or Sean Hannity, or whatever other idiot, but America voted for you, and America loves you, and that is black folks, white folks, and Spanish folks, and Trump just got
they
black
had a
vote.
black Republican convention in Atlanta, and a whole bunch of people came out.
Yeah,
So, I
as of
mean,
tonight, before tonight, Trump has the black vote. Like, that's basically his win. That question was not a good one to fuck up on.
yeah, it was not. It was really upsetting.
It doesn't represent your base. It doesn't represent me and her, who are both Trump supporters. It does not reflect the black fucking vote. It does not reflect the white suburban vote. So I'm wondering who exactly that even reflects, except for like fucking white supremacists.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating. It's infuriating, motherfuckers.
I was really angry. I still am bothered by it. And, you know, again, it made me think, well, damn, like, being that he answered that question that way.
It's just like, what?
I don't want people to think I'm a white
So
supremacist.
what, he's become a politician too now? He's just like Joe Biden now? They just fucking say what the fuck
But
ever?
you know what? The whole thing is like, let's be for real about this. Look, last election with Hillary and Trump, I did not participate, and I tell you why. Because I was like, oh, you're giving me like a bowl of hard shit.
You're giving me hard shit versus diarrhea. It's like, no,
And
just
I was
pour
like-
some diarrhea on my hard shit. It'll be like an ice cream sundae.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not going to participate. So that was the deal with that. But then, like, the Democrats decided to join forces with the radical lefties. And so now it's like, oh, so you've joined the crazies. Because
So
like,
no intelligent, mature person
I
can-
grew up always believing,
Yeah.
like, my whole family, Democrats. So, like, it was like, you just vote Democrat. And, like, I really didn't even understand politics, to be completely honest. And, like, just delving into it and figuring it all out and wanting to be a part of the conversation and not sound like a fucking complete idiot. And because I have children, mainly because of that. Like, I wanted them to understand what is happening in our nation. What does it mean to be American? What does the Constitution really mean? What do these presidents stand for? How does their policy affect our lives real time? I mean, Biden was accusing Trump of not doing anything. I don't know about you, but I done got sent some money. You know, I've received Trump checks. I know other people have received Trump checks. I've helped people get their Trump checks by entering their information for them. So I know they receive their Trump checks.
These are
And yet these
motherfuckers
are the same
that
people
these are the
complaining about
motherfuckers
Trump.
that hate Trump so bad that they refuse to fill out their fucking applications.
Yeah, they call me to
for
do
their
it instead.
benefits, and they call you to bitch about how miserable their life is because they won't fill out the application.
Yeah, they're like, I fucking hate
They
Trump.
happy to get that check.
But
though.
Jocelyn, can you fill out the information for me? Yeah, come on. I need
Yeah.
your banking information. I need your social security.
So again, we come back down to where we were literally in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
This is a exact replica of 2016.
Yeah.
Because what he is saying, there are elements of racism. There are elements of discrimination. Like everything that basically you can take all of the inflammatory shit that went towards the Mexicans and Hispanics in 2016
Yeah.
and apply it to the black people
Yes.
in 2020. And you'll see the same, I think, the same sort of
But if you're-
turnaround. Because Mexicans voted for Trump in 2016, I think black people about to vote for Trump in 2020. Because even though he made this comment, or actually refused to make
He
this
just
comment,
refused to
he just
say it.
refused
He
to
just felt
say
boxed
it.
in. They were like, answer the question, answer
They
the
were-
question,
yeah,
answer
they
the
set
question.
him
And he
up.
was like,
They did exactly. They were trying to get him in a box all night, and they got him on this one, and they got him on it, and they got him good. Because it was probably the biggest question, because like the black vote determines Trump 2020, period. Suburban housewives number 2, black vote number 1. As of right now, Suburban housewives turning towards Trump. Black vote just completely overwhelmingly in love with Trump. So, like, he has to basically fuck over the black voters in order to lose 2020. And sort of Biden got a bit of a hit on him by not anything that Biden said, but by baiting
him,
Trump
yeah,
into not being willing to admit
yeah.
because, like, he was so proud he could not concede.
But at the end of the day, what I really think that hits us all the hardest is, like, we all want some sort of normalcy back into our lives. Like, we all know how to social distance. We all know to wear our masks. We all know protocol at this point so that we can gain service and entry into businesses and be able to have some type of normalcy. And the fact that Biden wants to keep everything shut down, that is not encouraging to me. I'm not willing to sacrifice our youth for old people that have underlying conditions that are going to die anyways in a couple years. And that's just how I feel about it. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. There was a time where people would sacrifice the old people for the young. And right now, there are tons of kids that get, like, we have one of the biggest public school districts in, I think, the entire nation, if I'm not mistaken, because JCPS, because of the magnet school system. So, like, we have a lot of kids right now that are they're doing this homeschooling thing, this NTI. And let me tell you something. So I had my kids at JCPS.
They're dumbing kids down.
They're dumbing on top. Well, my kids were saying now that they're in private school, they go, Mom, the workload we're getting is insane.
They're almost not prepared for it.
And my kid was in AP.
Yeah.
Okay, advanced placement.
They were in the advanced classes.
So that
in public school for years.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 years at this point. In advanced classes. Ahead, like 2 grades ahead. And then they get to Catholic school, private school, and they are basically almost 2 grades behind.
They're not 2 grades behind. No, come on, no.
Okay. Well, she loves our kids. But
no. It's not about that. No, I mean, I do love my kids, but they're making grades. Like, they're making straight A's. The only issues that they're having are
they're working very hard.
They're having issues with religion and math.
Especially.
The math is far beyond what they were receiving at JCPS. And this is my point. Now that these kids are doing NTI, they're not getting the same level of education. And as a matter of fact, after I drop my kids off and I'm here at home, I see people's kids outside playing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just proven to me that they're finishing their workload
they
very
finish
quick.
it by like 10 o'clock in the morning.
And they're outside playing,
and they're
as they should be.
Playing.
And that's no fault of the parents, but it is fault of the school.
It's the fault of the school because, like, what are these other kids doing until 4 or 5 o'clock? Or sometimes our kids don't finish their homework until 6 or 7 after, and they get home at 3
or 8:30 at night. Really, like my daughter was doing homework till almost 9 o'clock.
So
at night.
how can you do an NTI class school all day and finish your homework by 11 o'clock in the morning? Like, what does that mean? That is essentially what they were arguing tonight with the, like, where COVID goes from here.
Basically, it's going to be a class issue.
Yeah, Biden's trying to frame this conversation, this argument, as old people. Old people are going to die. And that's a fact, no matter how it goes.
We're all going to die. We've all got expiration dates.
I'm going to die. We're going to die. You're going to die. But children are sacrificing on what was already a broken system of public education, very broken. Now, they're not even being held accountable for any of their actions in school or their interactions with their teachers.
Well,
or
this
their
is another
classmates.
thing. They are not having the same sort of interaction that we were having with each other at this age. Okay, so this is completely framing them as different people. It's like they're not dating. They're not going out like we would be. Because they're having a social distance.
If you're in public school.
Yeah.
If you're in private school, you're still doing all those things. Nobody in your family's dying. Nothing bad is happening to you. But you're getting all of that still. But if you're in public school, you're basically frozen in, 8 months ago? You're frozen in 2019. Into 2020.
You're frozen, and just based on the conversations
that
I know my daughter is having with all of her old peers that she still keeps in contact with, what is also happening is these kids are getting wildly addicted to social media and their devices,
and the
which
technology they send home with the kids,
which is so very seductive. And if you didn't have a computer at home, now you have one with JCPS, and not only that, they're monitoring everything your kid does, and not only that. But now, so it's framing their minds completely. Like when you're addicted to a device and you're not having that social interaction, it is changing your personality.
And the person that programs that device is the dude sitting in like basically the basement of the school and programming. You're not talking about teachers. You're not talking about the faculty, the administration. You're talking about one individual in IT
parents
that sets up your kids' device, their iPad, their computer, monitors it, spies on them, takes it home, watches their records, their history, every website they visit.
Well, not only that, but then you have parents that are put in this position of, okay, I gave you these devices so that you could feel connected, but now you're becoming addicted and obsessed, and you're totally disconnecting
and then they
from
want
real
to write
life.
home to the parents.
So now let me take away all these devices from you, which is what has happened to a lot of Lena's friends, you know, and I'm going to take all these devices away from you. So these kids are like getting really depressed. So it's like, well, damn, I'm not in school. I can't talk to my friends now because you took away my device and my phone. You're limiting that. And it's like, so what am I supposed to do with my time? And parents, like, and what are we supposed to do? Like, parents still have to work. So you're trying to work. How are you even, like, able to help your kid with school? You're trying to work so that you can pay the bills. Your kids are doing this NTI program. You got teachers sending you 50 million emails. You know, my heart goes out to all these parents because I actually tried to do it with 4 kids and could not do it. And that's why I was like, y'all are going to private school. Let me make 50 million phone calls. And by the grace of God, I found a school that would accept all 4 of my kids because I just could not do it.
And even with that, there's a whole lot of challenges.
Yeah.
So just the degree, we've been now years into private school or public school. Mm-hmm. And before that, me just in general in life, public, you know, the public welfare system, the public everything. I've experienced all of that. Healthcare. Like, it's great if you're not trying to do something. If you're not trying to move up. If you're just trying to sustain where you are. But like, it is anti-progress.
Yeah, absolutely. All programs, whether it be food stamps, Medicaid, or the public school system.
It's the progressive argument too, that these things cause you to progress. And my experience is the exact opposite. It's you progress when those things are basically not available.
Well, it's just like with food stamps. It's like, you know, I've never understood this, and I've heard a lot of people complain about it. So you can keep it when you make this a minimum income or nothing at all. The minute you get a job, instead of them saying, okay, we're going to support you
for 6 more months until that establishes.
Yes, so that you have
we cut you off.
Yeah,
so you got to say goodbye to all that money. So they de-incentivize you to doing something for yourself.
Exactly. So that's why a lot of people will just stay on the system. They don't support you and help you grow out of welfare. They try to say, basically, you want your welfare? Don't do shit. Yeah.
Fuck off.
So, you know, that's where we need to be talking about reform. We need to be talking about reform in the prison system. We need to be talking about reform in family court.
And that's what Trump is talking about.
Yes, that's because he's been helping people get out of prison.
He might not condemn not condemn the white supremacists.
But he is helping black people.
But yeah, when you talk about black people as people with sovereignty and dignity and self-respect and don't want to be treated like fucking apes and monkeys because apparently now it's racist for you to show a monkey on a cereal box because it insults black people according to the left.
And you know what? It's like, what? You think I think I'm an ape? You think that I think I'm a monkey? I'm not fucking insulted by the monkey on the box. I'm not a fucking monkey. Why would I be insulted? I don't understand that shit.
I don't either. I mean, I do.
Or how about this?
If you're wearing a white hood.
How about this? So we had to get rid of Uncle Ben. And you know what? And I'm not even going to go there because I don't even need to share that. That's mine. The fact of the matter is Aunt Jemima didn't offend me and Uncle Ben didn't offend me. In fact, they were my favorite pancake mix and syrup before I found out about real maple syrup because that stuff was so out of my price range for a while. I didn't even know it existed. And, you know, after they get all upset about that, so we got to get rid of those faces off of our boxes and our rice and our
pancakes. Rid of the Indian woman.
But how about they put Shaq's face on Papa John's pizza?
That motherfucker took over.
And like I was buying that pizza all the time because it had extra cheese and extra pepperoni, and nobody got upset about that, and rightfully so. Like, why should you get upset about that? I'm just saying, like, the things that y'all want to argue about are so fucking stupid and trivial when there are bigger issues that affect our community.
But Shaq probably did make about $400 million.
Oh yeah.
So that motherfucker is white as hell, Shaq. Good job, American
In the words
Dream.
of Charles Barkley, what was he saying? He was like, if we defund the police, who we gonna call? Ghostbusters?
Yeah, call Shaq, motherfuckers, because he got that fucking pizza, and he's got that money, and some police, and some securities.
You know, I watched them build a really bomb-ass treehouse for Shaq, too, on his property. And it's like, it is gorgeous, and it's moody, and it's got like rubbed bronze and beautiful wood.
Sounds like a place I might want to be.
It's all custom made. They even gave him like really huge stairs because he's got like, you know, I don't even know like how big his feet are, like 23
They're
inches.
like 13 or 14 inches.
No, they're bigger
long.
than that. No, they're like
18 inches.
They're absurdly large. They're like
absurdly.
They make you blush large. Okay, ladies.
Oh, because you could. Oh, I get it. I
But yeah. Anyhow.
All right. Well, you have witnessed here tonight the round one of Trump versus Biden election debates, and I will say I Trump victory. You
Trump.
But Trump, you fucking dumbass. Maybe address the white supremacy because kind of that's your majority. That's your base.
Yeah.
It's not white.
It's not white supremacists. It's people like me.
It is people like us that are going to vote for you because we hate the leftist supremacist. And if you just
yeah, let me just tell you, they're throwing away the mail-in votes. So just do us. Hey, just come out and stand in line.
Yeah.
Just come out and stand in line.
Because like basically all those are going to be contested anyway because at this point they're literally throwing them into the river. No one cares about the mail-in ballots. If you cast a mail-in ballot, no one fucking cares. No one's going to care. At the end of the day, it's got a large chance of being kicked out.
Let me just say, there are going to be a lot of sexy ladies.
Do like an American and go out and fucking vote, right, bitch? All right, folks. This is the Colonel here and his love.
Jocelyn. Yeah.
Jocelyn. Here, GTTV. Folks, join us again. We're going to have another debate coming up, and we would like you to be involved. And get some comments. Check out hellbrokeloose.com. Subscribe. Get some free books and some other free things that are going to be coming up. And also just see general destruction and mayhem because that is sort of what I do on my channel. Good night. I love you. Good night.